Today is August 22nd, 2017. My name is Elizabeth Duncan. I am a student in the Bachelor of Arts program with College for America at Southern New Hampshire University, and I am conducting this interview as part of my academic work. With your consent, I will record this interview and use the information in a street interview for Government and You deliverable. I am working on for a Contribute to Society project. The interview will be used to create a street interview for Government and You and will be submitted to the College for America so that my project can be evaluated. This recording will be used solely for this purpose. The interview information will be temporarily stored in the College for America online evaluation system to which only the evaluator and College for America staff will have access. Do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Do you give your consent to be interviewed and recorded?
Yes.
If the answer is yes, I will now turn over this statement that I would like you to read.
I, Christina Duncan, give my informed consent to participate in this interview to be recorded and used as part of the student's academic work.
Thank you, Christina. Now I have a few questions that I'd like to ask you. Can you tell me what the three branches of government are?
I believe the three branches are judicial, executive, and legislative.
Great. Can you tell me what each of them do?
I believe the legislative makes the laws. The judicial enforces the laws, and the executive carries out the laws.
Okay, great. Thank you. Democrats and Republicans are the two major parties. Can you name a third party?
The Libertarian Party.
Thank you. Can you tell me what is the basic process by which a bill becomes a law?
I believe the bill starts out with the House of Representatives, and then it moves on to the Senate, and then finally it ends up with the president, and he has the power to veto the law or not.
Great. Christina, that is all I have for you today. Thank you very much for participating in my street interview.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, now I will continue with my next interviewee. Thank you for joining me today. And now I would like to read a statement. My name is Elizabeth Duncan. I am a student in the Bachelor of Arts program with the College for America at Southern New Hampshire University. I am conducting this interview as part of my academic work. With your consent, I will record this interview and use the information in a street interview for Government and You deliverable that I am working on for Contribute to Society project. The interview will be used to create a street interview for Government and You and will be submitted to College for America so that my project can be evaluated. This recording will be solely for this purpose. The interview information will be temporarily stored in the College for America online evaluation system to which only the evaluator and College for America staff will have access. Do you have any questions?
Nope.
Do you give your consent to be interviewed and recorded?
I do. Yes.
Please read this statement for me.
I, Tim Duncan, give my informed consent to participate in this interview to be recorded and be used as part of the student's academic work.
Thank you. Tim, I'd like to ask you a few questions. Can you please tell me the three branches of government?
I can. There's the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Yeah.
Can you tell me what each branch does?
The executive branch is actually the highest power in the nation. Under the president, they enforce the nation's laws, and they also command the military for protection of the country.
Great. Democrats and Republicans are the two major parties. Can you name a third party?
Well, there's the Independents, the Tea Party, and I believe the Green Party, which I believe is the same as the Tea Party. But
Okay, great. Can you tell me the basic process by which a bill becomes a law?
well, it has to be introduced into the Senate first, so that the House has to vote on it, introduce it, and vote on it. If it passes, it goes to the Senate, actually from the House of Representatives to the Senate, where they have to pass it by a majority. And if it passes by a majority, then it becomes law, with the exception of a veto from the president.
Great. Tim, that's all the questions I have for you today. Thank you for your willingness to agree to be street interviewed.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I will continue on with my portion of this presentation. Today I will actually be reviewing the same questions that my interviewees answered. So let me speak for just a moment about the three branches of government and what each role plays. There is the executive, which is the office of the president. He carries out the laws, commands the armed forces, and directs national defense and foreign policy. Next is the legislative, which is Congress, Senate, House of Representatives. This branch of the government makes and passes the laws, originates spending bills, specifically in the House of Representatives, and impeaches officials, and that portion is done specifically by the Senate. Then there is the judicial branch. The judicial branch interprets the Constitution. They review and make decisions on laws, and they also make decisions on appealed cases in the higher courts, such as the Supreme Court. The next question that I asked my interviewees was, what does each branch of government do? And so what I'd like to do with you today is share what each branch of government does, and also share an illustration that I've created that I think shows very clearly how all of them are connected and how they regulate one another. First, there is the legislative. They make the laws, which is Congress, Senate, and the House, and all have a role in this. No one entity can make them alone. Then there's the judicial. Judicial makes rulings on the laws at the local, state, and Supreme Court levels. They all play a role. The local and state rulings can be appealed by the Supreme Court. Then we have the executive branch, which is the office of the president, as I shared a moment ago. He carries out the laws. Essentially, he is a chief law enforcement officer and has the power to veto laws. Essentially, all three of the branches of government need one another to function. And this is how they make up a checks and balances system, because it requires a working partnership that I will share with you in just a moment in my illustration in order for our government to function the way it was designed. So bear with me for just a moment. And here's the illustration showing exactly what it is that I just shared. So next, let's talk a little bit about the Democratic and Republican parties. I would like to name a third, and my response would be Libertarians or the Green Party. And I wanted to also share with you today how the two-party system started. At the onset, when this country was founded, and the Constitution was written, there was one group of people that became the Federalists that objected to the new Constitution, and another group that were called the Anti-Federalists, or the Democrats/Republicans, that objected to the new powerful government. So then these two groups of people made up the first two essentially political parties in U.S. history. John Adams was a Federalist and was elected president. Alexander Hamilton was also a Federalist and had great ideas on how to pay off debt and strengthen the economy. Adams lost the next election of 1800, and then Hamilton died. After that, the Federalist Party really never recovered. One of the greatest accomplishments of the Federalist Party was that the Republican government survived and became the root of the political parties here in the United States. In 1792, Jefferson and Madison founded the Democratic-Republican Party, and eventually the two camps, which really was bankers and industrialists versus farmers and labor type groups, split into two groups. Then ultimately becoming the Democratic Party, which was known as the Liberals, and the Republican Party, which was known as the Conservatives. So, what impact do third parties have on national politics? Well, in recent history, they've had a pretty big impact. There have been some independents, such as a gentleman by the name of Ross Perot, that took many votes from the Democratic and Republican parties in a recent presidential election. So the independents, if you will, or third party, while they may not have a very good chance of winning in respect to the number of votes to win the election, they can certainly make it more difficult for one or both parties to ultimately achieve victory. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about how a bill becomes law. So there are specific roles that of a sponsor, committees, debate, and voting. And so that's what I'd like to cover with you today. So a sponsor is the first person to present a bill for consideration. Only a member of Congress can introduce a bill. And a committee is a group of members, for example, in the Senate, that gathers and they evaluate the bill and make recommendations to the Senate on bills considered for legislation. Debate is really the opportunity for the members of the House of Representatives and the Senate to speak in support or against a bill before it's voted on. And then voting is really the last step in the process, and this is where a bill either passes and becomes law or fails. So the other thing I'd like to share with you is really the roadmap, if you will, in respect to how a bill starts and how it ultimately becomes law. And that's exactly what I just shared. So you will see here it starts out, and it can be suggested by any one of these groups of individuals. It's introduced into legislation. It then goes into the committees for discussion. It's put on the calendar. It's then debated and possible amendment. And then budget and engrossment. And then as it continues, then it moves over to the Senate side. So this is the House of Representatives and this is the Senate side. And it then goes into the committee here. It's put on the calendar. It's debated. And then ultimately, there is a vote that's taken, final approval or disapproval, and then ultimately it becomes law or fails. So this is a great illustration showing all of the various entities that really have a hand in a bill becoming law. So my name is Elizabeth Duncan. I am a College for America Bachelor of Arts student, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you today my street interviews and the information I learned about the legislative process and the branches of government. Thank you.